Good afternoon, everybody in Adelaide. It's Scott Wallace here, joining you via Zoom from the Gold Coast. I hope everyone is enjoying their day so far at the Vegan Adelaide Festival in person. I wish I could have joined everyone there today in person and been a part of the atmosphere and the vibe. But unfortunately, we still have some restrictions in terms of borders in our country, and some of the states are in lockdown. And this is all because of our current relationship that we have with animals and nature. COVID-19 is based off all the available science. It's pretty clear that COVID-19 is a zoonotic disease, which has arisen as a result of our current relationship with animals. Because of our consumption of animals and our exploitation of animals and our destruction and disregard for nature, we find ourselves currently in a global pandemic, which is having an impact on almost everyone here on this beautiful little blue and green planet. And we really need to delve into the root causes of this pandemic. And it's so important that we start looking and examining and analyzing our current relationship with nature and animals. For a very, very long time, for as long as I can remember, and going back, probably centuries, maybe even more than that, we've had deeply entrenched, human-centered or anthropocentric beliefs that have shaped the way we think, that have shaped the way we view and treat animals and nature. And this anthropocentric or human-centered worldview is something which is really destructive, really outdated, and really has its roots in the Western perspectives. Indigenous cultures and First Nation cultures all around the world understood how important it was to live in harmony with nature, understood how important it was for us to strike that balance between our health and well-being and the entire health and well-being of the rest of the Earth community. But unfortunately, in our societies currently, this human-centered anthropocentric worldview is something which has not been serving us. It hasn't served our planet. It hasn't served us as humans in the bigger scope of things, and it definitely hasn't served the animals. So this human-centered or anthropocentric worldview, we need to understand how this has influenced us. We need to understand how this worldview has shaped our society, because from that point, we can then understand how to shift it. We can understand what's wrong with the current way we are doing things and set a vision on a different world, to set a vision on a different way of viewing animals and nature and a different way of interacting with animals and nature. That's more in alignment with our survival. That's more in alignment with the rights and interests of other members of the Earth community. So this anthropocentric culture, this anthropocentric worldview, sees humans at the top of some perceived food chain. It sees humans as the most important species on this planet. We view humans as more important than other animals in nature. And we view nature as a commodity. We view animals as property, for example. And all we focus on is the extrinsic value that we can get from animals and nature. So it's about what can we as humans, how can we benefit from exploiting and using animals and nature? And this has been very destructive for this planet. As a result of this human-centered worldview, it's had a massive impact on the environment, on the lives of animals, and also on our human health as well. And before I pick apart and explain in more detail some of the ways in which this human-centeredness has been expressed, I want to talk about the ecocentric or the earth-centered worldview, which is in stark contrast to this human-centered anthropocentric worldview. So the earth-centered worldview, what this is, it understands that we are all part of an interconnected, interdependent, beautiful Earth community here on our planet, and that our rights and interests should not prevail over other animals and nature. We need to understand that our health is dependent on having healthy, functional ecosystems, and that other beings of the Earth community deserve the same fundamental rights, the same rights to not be treated as property, the same rights to live freely and to not be exploited, which is at a bare minimum we as humans deserve and need as well. So we really need to be transforming our culture away from the human-centered worldview to the earth-centered worldview. And with this, in the ecocentric worldview, we acknowledge the intrinsic value that animals and nature has. It's not only about what we as humans can get from animals and nature, it's acknowledging and seeing the value in other beings just purely because of the fact that they exist, the fact that these other creatures we share our planet with have a life and that we get to experience and connect with them. It's about moving away from seeing animals and nature as something that's here for us and something that beings that are here with us, right? Now, over the years, I've studied environmental science. I've also studied law, and I'm currently amidst a political campaign for state government here in Queensland. And in 4 days' time, the state is going to the polls. And I'm representing the Animal Justice Party, which is the only political party that's dedicated to being a voice for animals and nature in Parliament here in Australia. And I'm realizing the importance over the years through all the educational work and activism that I've been doing, that we need deep cultural shifts. We need to be shifting values. We need to be shifting the beliefs that people hold because they haven't been serving us. Not all of them, but with regards to our relationship with animals in nature, they haven't been serving us at all. It's been really, really saddening, really horrific, and just destructive and disconnected our current, mode of being on the planet as a collective humanity. So we can ask people to choose a different product, that may support kindness. We can ask people to not purchase something, for example, that we are passionate about. But the most powerful thing is beneath those actions is to actually change the values and beliefs that are driving people to make decisions. Because if we encourage people to no longer purchase animal products, unless they make the connection as to why that's important, the benefits of that, the impact that consuming animal products is having on the planet, on the health, on the animals, then we're missing out on integrity and consistency there. So culture, it consists of all of our values, all of our beliefs, our knowledge, our practices, our habits. It's very, very wide. And last year I was living in South Africa for about a year, and I was trying to explain to a woman at a restaurant if they had vegan food. And I'm trying to say there's no animal products. So, no eggs, no dairy, no meat. And I was explaining to her what veganism was. And she says, so veganism is like a culture. I said, yeah, in some ways it is. It's definitely a culture, and it's a philosophy, it's a lifestyle, it's a way of being that respects and honors other members of the Earth community. Veganism is a philosophy that promotes nonviolence, kindness, and takes a stand against animal exploitation and other forms of oppression as well. So veganism, because of the actions and the behaviors associated with the vegan philosophy and lifestyle, I really believe that veganism is the best way that we as humans can actually embody an ecocentric or earth-centered worldview. It's a way of expressing earth-centeredness in the modern era. Because let me just pick apart a couple of these things here. So as a result of our human-centeredness, we have commodified and exploited beings across our planet. Currently, we are breeding into existence and slaughtering 70 billion land animals a year and over 2 trillion sea life, because we as humans believe that the best reasons, we don't understand that the best reasons we have for killing and exploiting animals is our culture, is for convenience, is for taste, and for pleasure. So we don't eat animals, most of us. And if you're watching this this Zoom video here in Adelaide, then you're definitely not going to be someone who is dependent and needs to eat animals in order to survive. So our animal exploitation and consumption is something which is not a necessity. So globally, the animal agriculture industry is the single most destructive industry on the face of our planet. We're talking about the leading driver of a range of environmental harms, being a major driver of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, the leading driver of ocean dead zones, habitat loss, species loss, water pollution, water use, you name it, the list goes on. And the concerning thing is that throughout my 4 years of studying environmental science at a uni which had the first environmental science course in Australia, I wasn't educated as a scientist about the impacts of animal agriculture. I wasn't told the truth about just how destructive this industry was. So after all my years of wanting to do my bit for the environment, after all my years of wanting to choose a sustainable option, it's only after I finished my studies, watched a documentary called Cowspiracy, and started digging deeper into my relationship with animals, my culture, and my diet that I really, really struggled to confront some of the cognitive dissonance that was present within me. Because I claimed to be an environmentalist. I claimed to be someone who cared about the oceans. But at the same time, I was fishing. At the same time, I was volunteering for an organization, Sea Shepherd, that was on the front line of marine conservation and ocean protection. But I was still eating sea life. And I was still supporting industries that were part of the problem. Because 3/4 of our ocean's fisheries are either fully exploited, overexploited, or depleted. So how could I be acting in integrity whilst claiming to protect the oceans when I was part of the problem? I was a consumer driving the demand for sea life, which is resulting in the collapse of our oceans. So the last animals that I was eating, maybe 5 years ago now, was fish that I caught myself or wild kangaroo. Shortly after that, I decided to go vegetarian and eventually realized and came to accept the fact that the single quickest, cheapest, most effective way for us to minimize our environmental footprint on this planet is to adopt a whole foods, plant-based, vegan diet. And I wish I'd known this earlier, but unfortunately I hadn't. And there's so many reasons why a lot of this information is still suppressed within our society. But when I realized that how destructive animal agriculture was, when I realized the importance of us shifting our diet, and when I started to connect with the vegan beliefs that were already present within my heart, then I became so passionate to share these messages with people. I became so passionate to get the word out there and blow the lid on how destructive the animal agriculture industry was. So it's so important that we, for whatever issues we're passionate about, to be able to channel that. If we're feeling anger and frustration and resentment and whatever it is, to fully feel those emotions, to not block them out, but then to transmute that and turn that into action, to turn that into speaking our truth, to turn that into being a voice for the animals, being a voice for the rivers, for the forests, for the other beings that we share this planet with. So over the last 4 or 5 years, I've become really, really passionate about educational work, about advocacy, and have really focused on the environmental benefits of a plant-based diet. But it's only after I started my it's only after I realized that I held vegan beliefs and I started to connect and align my actions to those beliefs that I started looking at the health impacts of consuming animals. And I started looking at the ethics and morality of human exploitation and use of animals. Now, there's so many drivers that bring people to veganism and to a plant-based vegan diet. But it's important that we understand that veganism as a philosophy and lifestyle at its core is about not supporting animal exploitation. It's about not doing our best as much as practicable and necessary to avoid consuming animal products, because we don't want to support the oppression and violence and suffering of non-human animals. So our current relationship with animals in nature, our current very human-centered one, has resulted in this mass exploitation of animals, which is having a huge impact on the environment, and this needs to change. Additionally, the research is very, very clear now, the medical research and science, that we can thrive and be so fit and healthy on a whole foods, plant-based vegan diet. We can get all the nutrients we need from a plant-based diet, and we can minimize our likelihood of diabetes and of cancer and a whole range of preventable lifestyle illnesses just by shifting our diet. The biggest killer of human beings across the globe is heart disease, is atherosclerosis. And this has arisen because of our high consumption of saturated fats and cholesterol, largely coming from animal products. So not only can we reduce our footprint on the environment by shifting to a plant-based diet, we can also have healthier human populations by shifting our diet. We can reduce illnesses and disease and reduce the likelihood of cancers just by shifting our diet. How profound is this? So not only does the vegan lifestyle and philosophy and the element of the lifestyle, which is the diet, eating plant-based foods, have a positive impact on the environment, it's better for human health. It makes a massive difference in the lives of the non-human animals that we share our planet with. Because for the 70 billion animals that from the moment that they were born, someone has determined when they're going to be executed and how they're going to be executed. They know in 2 months' time, when this animal has grown fat enough that we can make money off it by killing this creature, sending it to a slaughterhouse, market these products for people to consume them. People already know that these animals' fates have been determined. Now, we don't need to consume any animal products in order to be healthy and survive. But industry promotes the consumption of animal products. We have government which promotes the consumption of animal products through nutritional information. We as consumers are bombarded with so many myths and misunderstandings and just rubbish that condition us to continue supporting industries that if we actually knew what was happening in these industries, we wouldn't be supporting these industries at all. Because deep down, we as human beings are beings of love, of compassion, of respect, of kindness. Because if I took anyone at a young age and put in front of you a rabbit and an apple, I bet you wouldn't rip the head off the bunny rabbit and kill it and eat it and play with the apple. I think you would be patting the rabbit, you'd be interacting and hanging out with the rabbit and acknowledging this other being that's there with you and showing kindness to it and eating the apple, eating the fruit. So we have these deep beliefs, but we've been conditioned out of them. And as I was saying previously, industry has had a huge role in shaping our minds, in shaping our beliefs and our values, and disconnecting us from the suffering and the torture of animals all across the globe. And this is something that needs to change. We need to be out there, sharing with friends and family and people that we meet, whether it's online or in person, the atrocities of these industries that exploit animals. It's up to us to be a voice for the voiceless and to share with people what's actually happening. Because most people we meet, they're not in support of animal cruelty. Most people we meet actually care about animals. But more and more people these days are making the connection between our consumption of any animal products, our decision to wear animal skin, our decision to purchase products which have milk, eggs in them, that this comes at the expense of an animal's life. And we need to make those connections. So with our culture as it stands, we know that eating animal products and supporting animal exploitation, huge impact on the environment, huge impact on human health. And it really, really means hell for the animals that are caught up in industries that are exploiting them. Take, for example, here in Australia, where we have what's claimed to be some of the highest welfare laws in the world. Here in Queensland, we have the Animal Care and Protection Act, which is a top bit of legislation that's meant to protect animals. Now, in Section 3 of the Animal Care and Protection Act, the purposes, it states that let me just get the wording right here. Sorry, guys. Okay. So the purposes of this act are to do the following: promote the responsible care and use of animals, to promote the use of animals. So our legislation is meant to protect animals. Its intention is actually to promote the use of animals. So we have these laws that are written from a human-centered anthropocentric worldview that merely legalize our human exploitation of animals. Our legal system is yet another way that supports the human-centered worldview that allows humans to do whatever they want to animals, and it's completely legal, supported and endorsed by government and the organizations that are meant to protect animals. Further down this bit of legislation, it says that the purposes of the act are to protect animals from unjustifiable, unnecessary, or unreasonable pain. Well, we know we don't need to exploit animals. We don't need to be killing animals to survive. So most of this animal exploitation is not out of necessity. So there's inconsistencies here with the intentions of these laws, what they profess to do, and the reality, you know? So our culture not only consists of the actions we take, it consists of our habits, it consists of the beliefs and values that we hold. And culture is something that is slowly created over time. And we have such a sense of urgency right now to shift our culture to an earth-centered or eco-centric way of being. And veganism is going to play and will continue to play a crucial role in this transformation of culture. Veganism is going to play such a fundamental role in the expansion of the human consciousness, which is going to lead to a healthier environment, healthier humans, and a better lives and a better life for the non-human animals we share our planet with. Here in Australia, these top welfare laws that we have are based on a welfare perspective. Now, for a long time, I didn't think there was much difference between animal welfare and animal rights, but there's a huge difference. And it's important that we understand these differences. The animal welfare paradigm doesn't question whether it's moral or ethical to actually use and exploit animals. The welfare paradigm says it is. It's humans have the moral right to exploit and use animals. And that humans have a responsibility to treat, use, and kill animals humanely. Whereas the animal rights perspective, animal rights is based on the foundation that animals have the right to not be treated as property. The animals have a right to life. The animals have the right to be free and to not be enslaved. So animal welfare merely promotes animal exploitation with limited protections. Animal rights, on the other hand, takes a strong stance against oppression and violence and the exploitation of animals, which is why it's so important that we continue to focus on the abolitionist approach to animal rights, where we set the goal at ending animal exploitation, not merely regulating and encouraging animal exploitation, where we focus on non-violent, informative, educational vegan activism to help people make those connections. When we sit down for dinner, and at a time where when I hadn't realized I was vegan and I was still eating animal products, I'd sit down for dinner and I'd see a steak a bit of cow flesh, and I wouldn't really connect with the other being. I wouldn't really connect with the person, with the someone that I was eating. And that's intentional, because we don't see what happens behind closed doors. We don't see what happens in slaughterhouses. And fortunately, with the wonderful work of activists around the country and around the world shining light on the horrors of industries that exploit animals, we have films and exposés like Dominion coming out, which show people actually what happens to animals in our food industries, in the industries that exploit animals. People can actually start connecting to what's happened to that cow, to that bit of piece of animal flesh that's sitting on your plate. Now, I know, yes, a cow has died for that bit of steak. But what I didn't realize was the amount of suffering that happens in the egg and the dairy industry. I didn't realize that in order for a cow to fall pregnant, she has to be artificially inseminated. That when that baby cow is born, they actually take away that baby calf from the mother, because that cow is considered, we don't want the cow to be drinking the milk that humans want to sell for humans to consume, right? Now, if it's a male calf in Australia, the legal standard industry practice is for farmers to actually kill that baby calf using blunt force trauma. That could be a sledgehammer to the head. This is standard industry practice in Australia that is upheld by industry codes of practice, which actually are written by industry, which allow industry pretty much to do whatever they want to animals. So when more people start making the connection that there's forcible impregnations in the dairy industry, that there is blood in the dairy industry, that baby cows are being killed because we want to have a glass of cow's milk, that animals are dying because people want to choose the dairy ice cream or the dairy chocolate over the better plant-based alternatives, we've really got to be, emphasizing these to people. The female cows in the dairy industry are kept, on these cycles of forcible impregnation and have their babies taken away from them. And they're going to end up in the same slaughterhouse once they've gone through their 4 or 5 years of being exploited and commodified. So the dairy industry has massive links to the meat industry. They're one of the same, essentially. And similarly with eggs, I was someone who used to eat, 3, 4 eggs every morning with salmon and avo on toast. And I always bought the free range eggs because I thought that was the best thing I could be doing for the animals. Well, it turns out whether it's free range eggs, cage free, barn free, whatever these words are that are used to promote the consumption of these products, they don't make much difference in the end fate of these animals and in the lives of these animals. Baby male chickens in the egg industry, because they're a wastage, because they're considered a byproduct, because they don't produce eggs and they can't be exploited, within their first few days of being born, they're actually killed. And one of the most humane practices is to actually blend up baby male chickens in what's called a macerator. So they blend up baby male chickens alive because they can't exploit them. Now, for some people, hearing these things and imagining what's happening to animals is deeply distressing and it's horrifying, because right now, while we still have a non-vegan world, there are animals that are being slaughtered. There are animals that are being killed every single second. And this needs to change. And we are on the path to creating a new earth. We are on the path to creating a vegan world with less kindness, with more kindness, with less violence, and it takes us being informed and understanding what's actually happening to the environment, what's happening to human health, what's actually happening to the animals, and then for us to share this with people to help them make the connection. Throughout my whole life, I haven't come across anything that's just as profound that has so much potential to change the direction and course of our existence as veganism, as the philosophy and lifestyle of nonviolence, of kindness, of compassion for each other, for ourselves, for non-human members of the earth community. So the benefits of veganism go on. There's so many, and the more I research, the more I understand, the more I embody the vegan philosophy and lifestyle, see just how valuable this is. And this is going to be a crucial part of our culture moving forward. And we're already starting to see this transformation across the globe. And everyone who has already made the connection, that is living in a vegan way, that is embodying this, thank you so much for being a part of co-creating this world. And for people out there who haven't made the connection yet, I encourage you to drop into your heart, to really reconnect to your core values, which I believe are within you, of love, of compassion, of respect, and to align your actions to those values. Because for a lot of my life, I wasn't living in alignment. I was supporting animal exploitation and supporting the degradation of our oceans and killing animals, but claiming to be doing the opposite. It's so tricky though, because we've had so much conditioning, because of our educational systems, because of the laws that are in place to allow animals to be exploited by humans, for industry to be behind closed doors, away from our eyes, that it's no surprise we've gone so long not realizing what we're supporting. $70 billion animals a year are being killed, and this needs to change. This planet is something that we share with other members of the Earth community. And I see a vision of a different world. I see a vision where our laws are different, where they are being driven by earth-centered beliefs and values. And we are seeing this happen across the globe now with the global rights of nature movement, with ecosystems being granted legal personhood throughout the world. Earth jurisprudence is an ecological theory of law that is based on ecocentric beliefs and values. Earth jurisprudence builds upon the indigenous knowledge and wisdom from First Nations people and indigenous people all across the globe, and is based off that deep respect, deep connectedness, and deep relationship that we have with the rest of this beautiful planet. So we are starting to see shifts in our legal system. And one of the Animal Justice Party's plans for our 10-point plan for a kind of Queensland was to look at acknowledging and upholding the rights of nature, to grant legal personhood, for example, to ecosystems. We can start seeing our legal system focus on ecocentric worldview, where we can move away from the property status of animals, and we can really start seeing huge shifts within our government, within our legal system, within our society. So when it comes to any form of social change, when it comes to anything that we want to see more of in the world or less of in the world, we often talk about it in terms of a top-down or a bottom-up approach. But we've got to realize there's so many ways to tackle these issues. And for example, I'm using my science background and my understanding in law to advocate from a top-down level. There's also ways every single day, just by living vegan, that we set an example for people and educate people for how to live and to interact in a way that actually acknowledges other members of the Earth community, that embodies kindness, that embodies compassion. And we need to continue, we need to persist, because there's so much at stake here. And for anyone who feels that, things aren't changing and we're not going to be able to address these global issues, we will. And a vegan world is possible, but it takes us working together. It takes us staying connected to those core values we have within us. It takes us speaking our truth, connecting with people, standing up for injustice, and living in a way that creates a kinder, less violent world. Veganism is a way for us to embody eco-centric worldviews. Veganism is a way that we can transform our culture for a better world for all members of the Earth community. Thank you.